Hello campers, this is the Suburban Camper, and this is the most important video on my YouTube channel. Please watch this video before you start camping in a Suburban or any vehicle. Camping in any form introduces an additional level of risk to day-to-day activities. In addition to this, sleeping in a vehicle and traveling with gear adds additional risk. To be prepared for these additional risks, please read your vehicle owner's manual and the manuals that come with all your gear and follow all the instructions and abide by all the safety warnings. I also recommend you carry all your manuals with you so you can refer to them as needed. Now I will walk you through the 10 safety guidelines I utilize to mitigate the risks involved with camping and traveling in my Suburban. Number 1. Always 2 exits. I always maintain a minimum of 2 free and clear exits from the vehicle. I always have at least one of the rear passenger doors as my primary exit and the rear hatch window as an emergency exit. I keep the rear window popped and propped open so it cannot be latched. I loop a rag through the latch and I can use it to pull the window down either from the outside or inside. The child safety locks must be turned off on both passenger doors, and you need to make sure the manual locks are working before you go lights out. I test them by locking the vehicle with the key fob and then unlocking each door with the manual locks. Number 2, have a backup exit plan. I have an emergency hammer mounted between the front and rear windows on both sides of the vehicle. I have another emergency hammer in the center console. If I am unable to open a door or window, then I will use a hammer to break a window to exit the vehicle. Number 3, put it out. Fire is probably the number one risk while camping. I have a fire extinguisher permanently mounted in the back of my Suburban. It can be easily accessed while both in and outside the vehicle. I check to make sure it is charged, and I know how to release it from its mount and how to use it. I also keep a can of fire spray in my kitchen bin so it can be easily accessed while cooking. Number 4, no CO. Carbon monoxide poisoning is a silent killer and high on the list of risks while sleeping in a vehicle. I have a regular home smoke and CO detector in the vehicle, and my lights out checklist includes making sure this is set up and working properly. I also always sleep with the windows cracked open. Number 5, safe power. I enjoy having power while camping. I will tap into campsite power when available, and I also use a solar panel, deep cycle battery, inverter, and occasionally a generator. Again, please read the manuals that come with your power gear and abide by all the instructions and safety warnings. Also, please be sure to utilize outdoor rated power cords along with circuit protected connections between power sources and devices. I also recommend familiarizing yourself with AC versus DC power when planning for your power needs. Number 6, no smelly sparks. Just to be clear, I said sparks. Propane is almost always used while camping, so you need to learn how to use it safely. A trick I always use is having a soapy water bottle on hand and spraying the connection between the propane source and the appliance, such as a camp stove, and if new bubbles are produced, then address the leak before using the appliance. And always remember, if you smell propane, avoid creating a spark and extinguish all open flames. Number 7, easy access. You should always have quick and easy access to your keys, phone, and a flashlight while sleeping in a vehicle. I have a small collapsible lantern hanging from the middle seat handles, which puts it right above my head when sleeping in the back. All I need to do is pull down the bottom to turn it on. You should also have easy access to your pants, coat, and shoes for a quick and comfortable exit. Number 8, embrace the cold. Winter is a great time to camp and avoid crowds. However, using a heat source inside the vehicle while sleeping is dangerous, and I avoid it whenever possible. I always set the expectation that I do not need the inside temperature to be warm to stay warm. I layer up accordingly, and if needed, bust out an extra sleeping bag. But if it's below freezing, I recommend using a 12-volt electric blanket with a deep cycle battery. Number 9, drive safely. Utilize the checklist to assure your vehicle is ready for travel and your load is secured. In addition to this, measure your overhead clearance and write it down where you can refer to it while driving. Always maintain visibility via the rear view mirror and be aware of your extra length if you're utilizing a hitch cargo option. Also, plan for extra stopping time when you are fully loaded. Number 10, secure your load. The modular no-build approach means you are carrying a lot of gear in the vehicle, and while most of it's contained in bins, you must make sure everything in and on the vehicle is secure and passengers are protected from the load shifting. I utilize a heavy-duty cargo net to secure everything in the back, and then I make sure all other loose items are secure. For example, if I place the generator on the floorboard behind the passenger seat, I will move the passenger seat back so it's locked in place. And if the Yeti cooler is in the passenger seat, I will use the seat belt to secure it. I utilize a departure checklist, which includes assuring the cargo carrier, cargo rack, and hitch cargo carrier, along with other contents, are secure before I depart. And finally, do not exceed the roof load limit of your vehicle as indicated in your owner's manual. Alright, so those are the 10 guidelines I utilize to camp safely in my Suburban, and of course, my common sense always guides my actions. At my website, suburbancamping.com, on the safety page, I shared one real-life scenario that touches on 7 of these 10 guidelines, and I encourage you to check that out. Okay, let's talk about security for both you and your gear. First, here are the 4 security guidelines I utilize. Number 1, nothing inside. I park my Suburban on the street when I am home. At one point, I thought, wouldn't it be nice to load most of my camping gear the night before I leave so I can be ready to go in the morning. That was not a good idea, and I end up having to replace most of my gear and repair a broken window. So, I do not leave any gear or bins inside my Suburban when it's parked at home. Number 2, chain it down. Cables are no match for bolt cutters. That's how I parted ways with my first Pelican cargo box along with all the gear inside of it. Now I use chains to secure my gear. You should use hexagonal chains and shrouded padlocks whenever possible, as they provide the best protection from cutting. However, please note hexagonal chains are typically very large, and the limited clearance of shrouded locks does not always enable them to work well together. Number 3, self-defense. As this photo demonstrates, I am often alone in the middle of nowhere with no cell reception. I highly recommend the use of some form of safe personal protection. Also, I always lock the doors when I'm sleeping inside, and I also try and keep the driver's seat free of gear so I can get in that seat and flee if needed. Number 4, spare keys. A bad scenario is you are in the middle of nowhere and lose your keys and the vehicle is locked and everything is inside or secured with locks. To avoid this scenario, you should come up with a plan for having secure access to spare keys for the vehicle and all the locks. Okay, now I will show you how I secure my gear. Unfortunately, I had to learn some hard lessons to arrive at my current setup, so hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. For the cargo rack, I'm not too worried about someone taking the time to unscrew the 8 nuts required to remove it, so I just use a cable and padlock to secure this to the Suburban's crossbar. For the hitch cargo carrier, I use a locking trailer hitch pin to secure the carrier. To secure the bins, I use a hexagonal chain placed lengthwise and padlocked to the cargo strap holder. I connect one side, then pull it tight, wrap the other end around the bar, and then lock it down. Be sure it is tight on both sides of the tie down so it can't slide either way. The chain does not always eliminate access to the bins, but it does prevent their removal and keeps the lid secured while traveling. For my campsite gear, if I'm leaving a campsite for a while or if I feel I need to secure everything overnight, I stack the bins up to 4 high and lock them together with a cable lock. The bins have slots in them and these cable locks will fit through them. You can also loop in other gear like chairs and a table. Then I loop a hexagonal chain over the top and lock it to the larger items like the table or chair. This is mostly a deterrent as it's not going to stop someone with bolt cutters and a little ingenuity, so if I'm leaving for a long time, I will usually load up my gear and take it with me. For the cargo box, I have a chain wrapped in pipe insulation and duct tape running through the back side of the cargo rack, and each end attaches to the back side of the cargo box with a padlock. The downside is the locks are hard to get to when loading and unloading, and the security is not obvious, so the box may still get targeted, but I'm confident they won't get away with it, so I'm sticking with this setup for now. To secure the lid, I use padlocks on the two latches. When I need to secure the generator at a campsite, I utilize the hitch cargo carrier. The crossbars in the bottom holder are the perfect width to hold the generator and keep it up off the ground. This picture shows the overnight setup with a tarp cover in case it rains. Please note you should never use a generator in a wet environment. There is a chain running through the handle and padlock to each side of the upper bin holder. This makes it very difficult to move the generator, and I also keep the hitch lock on this rather than on the hitch, so if someone is able to move it, then they could not hook it up to their hitch and haul it away. For the propane tank, whether it's in the hitch cargo carrier or on the roof rack, I will use a chain to secure it by running it through the handle space. Please note, I'm also using other means such as bungee cords to fully secure the propane tank to keep it from moving around while traveling. I hope you learned something from this video. Please camp and travel safely, and visit my website suburbancamping.com to learn even more about how to stay safe. Thank you very much.